In the second part of the print video, we're going to send our test strip here to print. So if you look here at our test strip, you'll see that there's two layers. It's okay to send it as is. We don't need to flatten this now. We're going to go to File, and we're going to go to Print. Quick key is Command P. And because we're making a test strip, there's a few things that we have to remember before we print this. One is, unlike when we're making either contact prints or prints, final prints, we need to send this just as US letter, and I'll show you where that is in just a minute. The other two you can send as US letter, borderless, retained size with the printers we're using. So the first thing to do once we have this printer dialog box is, one, we need to remember that there's actually two dialog boxes that we're going to navigate through. The first one is the Photoshop print settings, and the second one is actually the printer print settings. So now we're going to just kind of go through the different steps here. First is printer. Art VW printer is a laser printer in the front of the classroom. We're going to either print on Levitt or Saunders for Art 120. Levitt is at the front of the classroom underneath the screen. Saunders is to the left where the door is. So I'm going to select just one of these to print to. And we're going to print a Saunders. And we can see here that the layout is a proper orientation. If you had a horizontal image here and it was clipping part of your image, if you just click on the layout, you'll see that it reorients the paper. When we put the paper in the printer, we always put the printer vertically, or portrait. So you may have to just rotate in order to print your entire test strip or contact sheet or print. After we've selected the correct layout, we're only going to send one copy through and only put one piece of paper in at a time. We're going to call out to which printer we're using. Here we're going to go down to color handling. Because we use Photoshop for all of our adjustments, for this class right now we're going to actually allow Photoshop to manage the tones or the colors of the print. In Photo 2 we may use more of an advanced black and white mode in which we'll use the printer to manage the colors. Here under printer profile we have to remember to select the proper profile, which is made up of the printer that we're using, the ink set, and the paper. For test strips and for our prints we're using a Canson Infinity Baryta paper, and that paper profile has already been installed for us, but if you're using some other paper that is not, and you don't see the profile here in this drop down menu, you'll have to download the profile from the paper company's website. So we'll see here down under the first line here, we'll see 4 different CIFA profiles, and those are really just for different printers that we have here. And we have to make sure that we select the proper printer. Saunders is a P800, which is an Epson printer, and just take note of the Baryta 310P BK. BK is for photo black, and then we want to just make sure that we also remember what the media setting is in the printer dialog box that will appear in just a minute. So CIFA P800, select that. And we're going to make sure that the printing is normal. The rendering intent is relative color metric. If you go on in Photo 2 and you work in color with very vibrant colors, you may choose perceptual, but for the most part, relative color metric is the rendering intent that we're going to select. And then we're going to have the black point compensation clicked on. After we have all of that, we're going to remove this in just a minute, but first we're going to actually set the paper size and the rest of the settings in the printer dialog box. We get to that dialog box by going up, back to this button that's underneath the printer selection. I'm going to click on Print Settings. Once we have this dialog box up, we're going to first make sure that we have the proper printer selected, which is selected here. We're going to click on this thing that says Show Details, and this will give us more options. And just make sure, here you see it in Hide Details, make sure that we click on this so that we can actually set our paper size and then also some other settings. For test strips, US letter is what we select. When we go on and we start making full prints, we're going to select borderless retained size for both contact sheets and full prints. But for test strips, just US letter. So we'll select off that. And then we're going to go down to this drop-down menu that says Layout. And really, we're only going to set really 1 or 2 other things here. We're going to go down to Print Setting or Printer Settings, and And then when this dialog box appears, paper source is the sheet feeder, which is in the back of the printer where you load the paper. Media type, we're going to change this from premium photo paper glossy, because we remember that in the last dialog box it told us to select ultra premium photo paper luster. And then we're going to make sure that the output resolution's at 1440, and then high speed is clicked on, and finest details clicked on. These are default settings that are usually selected, but if for some reason you do not see these selected, just make sure that those are clicked on and that 1440 is selected here. We're going to hit save, and then once it saves, you'll see that the dialog box here changes a little bit. Now, we're going to start off by placing our test strip on one side or the other, and then as we continue to make more test strips, we'll send the same piece of paper through and we'll just move that test strip. So I'm going to click off the center button, and I'm going to move this test strip here to the left side, and you'll see where those little hash marks are. We're going to move it right up against that. So now I'm going to guess and say that's probably a 1/4 inch here border. Actually, it's probably an 1/8 inch on the left hand side. So the next test strip that we're going to make, we're going to have to move this down next to what will be that other test strip that we have. So if I move it here, and we just remember when the print comes through, you want to check and make sure that you know what prints first, the top or the bottom, so that when you reload the paper, I'm going to tell you that here for a vertical image I will reload it upside down, so that the guy's head here is upside down, and then I would move this over to the right by 1 inch and maybe 0.58. And then all we do is we hit print, and then it will send it through. Before we hit print, we tell everyone in the room that we are printing on Sonder, so we yell out Sonder, I'm printing to that printer, and then you hit print, and you just want to make sure that your paper is loaded. That is it for printing the test strip, and the third part and final part will be how to make a full print.